Hello everyone, this is the InStyle Knitting Studio, and today I offer you to knit this beautiful lace cardigan for girls with me. In principle, it can be knitted for a boy as well, but here you just need to change the pattern. This pattern is lace. I think it only suits girls. So, if you have boys, don't be upset and join as well, just find another pattern. I have already shown how to knit such a pattern. I have a video tutorial. I will leave a link for you under the video. This cardigan is knitted from half wool yarn. It is not very thick, making it suitable for transitional seasons. It is knitted separately, the fronts, separately the back. The sleeves are sewn on, and then it is edged. I knitted it for my daughter, who is about 3 years old, 3.5. Her height is approximately 92 to 98 centimeters. Here it turned out to be a little like this. It is elongated with a wide edging at the bottom, and the edging on the sleeves is a bit smaller. It's basically the same as on the neckline. The band is also slightly wider. In this masterclass, there will be a lot of calculations. It is a very detailed masterclass. I think it might still be a bit challenging for beginners. But I tried to explain everything in the smallest detail. I believe that beginners can get it, but expect that it won't be so simple. Well then, my dear friends, let's try to knit such a lace beauty together. Let's get started. For this work, we will need yarn. I have cone yarn, Slonim half wool. It is already wound into balls, and I will be knitting with 6 strands. Needles, both straight and circular, I have 325. Scissors, a pen, and a notebook for calculations, they will come in handy. Safety pins for temporary stitch transfers, as well as markers, tips for straight needles and little needles. If you do not have all of this, it is not a big deal. It is quite possible to manage without this hardware, for instance. Pins and markers can be replaced with a regular thread, and it is entirely possible to do without little needles and tips. We will also need a hook for sewing the pieces together and a needle to hide all the ends. A measuring tape, buttons, I have 6 buttons, and decorative elements for our cardigan. As for decorating the cardigan, the decorative elements are not mandatory. But the buttons are a must. I will be knitting the whole top in this lace pattern. I have already shown you how to knit it. I will leave a link to the lesson under the video. First of all, you need to knit a sample, wash it, and dry it on a horizontal surface. Here is my sample. It turned out to be 2 repeats in width and 3 in height. I have dried it. Now we will take measurements. 13 centimeters wide and 11.5 tall. Let's start calculating. The size of my sample is 13 centimeters by 11.5. Let's make a proportion. 13 centimeters in width means I've cast on 31 stitches. In other words, I cast on 31 stitches for my sample and achieved a width of 13 centimeters. Now let's find out how many stitches we have per centimeter. 31 stitches multiplied by 1 centimeter and divided by 13 centimeters. In total, we get 2.38 stitches. So 1 centimeter equals 2.38 stitches. I am not rounding to a whole number yet. To calculate how many stitches we need to cast on, we will take a top that fits us well. In order to take measurements, since I am knitting a top for my daughter, I took her old top that we have been wearing for a long time. It is knitted here in a completely different way, with raglan from the top, but I took it to measure in centimeters. so that I can estimate how many centimeters I need to knit the new top. Now we will knit from the bottom. That is, we will cast on stitches and knit from the bottom up. I didn't want to knit the front and back separately, and then sew them together. I decided to make it all in one piece up to the armpits. I will knit all of this in one piece. So it turns out, this is how we will knit. We should end up with a big rectangle. This is our starting point, a long section with many stitches. We will knit upward as a whole piece to this point, up to our armpits. After that, here we will cut this thread and knit the front parts and the back separately from the sleeve, higher up. That's it, I think it was clear. Now let me fasten it and take some measurements. So now I will measure the chest's half circumference. The distance from armpit to armpit, since the sweater is straight. I got 31 centimeters. So now, I will measure in such a way that the new sweater, the half circumference of the chest will also be 31 centimeters. That means the chest circumference is 62 centimeters. I am knitting this for my daughter. She is 3 years old now. Her height is about 92 to 98 centimeters. According to the measurements, the half circumference of the chest is 31 centimeters. Accordingly, the chest circumference is 62 centimeters. Now, 2 whole 38. We multiply the stitches by 62 centimeters. It will result in 148 stitches. So I calculated how many I need to cast on stitches for my required chest circumference that I measured. Now we subtract 3 from 148 stitches. 3 stitches are for 2 edge stitches and the first purl stitch, which is not included in our repeat. This gives us 145 stitches, and we know that 1 repeat is equal to 14 stitches. It turns out we will calculate how many reports we will get from the required stitches. Ten whole 36 of a rapport. That is, we will count how many whole reports we will have based on the number of stitches needed to cast on. We ended up with 10 whole reports. Now we will multiply the number of stitches in one rapport, which is 14, by 10 whole reports. This results in 140 stitches. Be sure not to forget to add 3 stitches that are not included in the rapport. That is, 2 edge stitches at the beginning and the end of the row, and 1 stitch which is the second stitch of each row, that is knitted purlwise, resulting in 143 stitches. Thus, according to my measurements, I need to cast on 143 stitches. I will end up with 10 rapports plus 3 stitches. I won't be knitting those 36 of a rapport. I will just decrease slightly because we measured the bust half circumference in our sweater and did not consider the adjustment for the band. That means we should have subtracted 1.5 or 2 centimeters from the bust's half circumference, however much you prefer. So I had 31 centimeters. I could subtract 1 centimeter. I would end up with 30. And the back would be 31 centimeters, resulting in 61 centimeters instead of 62 centimeters, as per the calculations. After that, we could calculate everything just as I explained earlier. I did not subtract, So I ended up with 10 whole reports plus some tail. This little tail, a couple of stitches, just goes to my stitches for the band. Overall, I think you understood how to make adjustments for this band. In principle, you can choose not to make adjustments. Sometimes I don't subtract anything. That is, I knit both the back and the front the same, so I cast on the same number of stitches, and it works out fine since it is a children's size. Here, nothing is really tightened. That means we calculated how many stitches fit in 1 centimeter of our width. All these measurements were made concerning the width. So, 13 centimeters is our sample width. Here, I will note that this is the width and 11 whole 5/10 is the height. Thus, all these measurements were made regarding our width. In the end, we have 2 whole 38/100ths of stitches per centimeter. This results in 23 whole 8/10ths of stitches for 10 centimeters. I will write here separately and repeat that my sample measures 13 centimeters for my width and 11 whole 5/10 centimeters for my height. We have already calculated that there are 2 whole 38/100ths of stitches per centimeter in width. Accordingly, there are 23 whole 8/10ths of stitches in 10 centimeters. Now let's calculate the height. How will we count? That is, we will also calculate how many rows we have per centimeter. Our height in the sample is 11.5 centimeters. How will we count? I knitted 36 rows to a height of 11.5 centimeters in my sample. Here is the resulting sample. I knitted 36 rows in height, and it came out to 11.5 centimeters. Next, we will also make a proportion. 1 centimeter equals x unknown. This means we want to find out how many rows are in 1 centimeter. 36 rows multiplied by 1 centimeter and divided by 11.5 centimeters. This results in 3 whole 13/100ths of a row, and I will write here separately that 1 centimeter equals 3 whole 13/100ths of a row. Accordingly, 10 centimeters equal 31 whole 3/10ths of a row. We have made the measurements. We simply calculated this here. I put it down separately. That is my knitting density. We calculated how many stitches fit in 1 centimeter of width and how many rows fit in 1 centimeter of height. After that, we measure our sweater. For which we make the calculations, we need to measure the length from the back. I do not account for the neckline, the edging itself. I measure from this point straight to the end. I get 33 centimeters. I accounted for the edging at the bottom, because I don't know if I will edge the new sweater at the bottom, or leave it as it is. So I get 33 centimeters for the length from the back. After that, we measure the length from the armpit to the bottom. Here, I will also take into account my binding and measure along with it. I got 20 centimeters, but since I think this sweater is a bit short, I will add an extra 3 centimeters at the bottom. Here, I have roughly tried to depict our sweater, so to speak, our pattern. Now, I will write down the measurements that we have obtained. We measured from the armpit to the bottom. This part, here it is. I got 20 centimeters, but I will add another 3 centimeters downward, which means I will lengthen the sweater a bit. It will be 23 centimeters here, this part. And the length of the back, there it is, we measured. I got 33 centimeters, and I will also add 3 centimeters here. In the end, I will have 36 centimeters. After we calculated how many stitches to cast on, we knit 23 centimeters in height to the armhole. Let's calculate. Since 1 centimeter equals 3.13 rows, then the 23 centimeters I need to knit will equal X. Accordingly, X equals 3.13 rows multiplied by 23 centimeters and divided by 1 centimeter. The result is 72. We start knitting from the bottom, and I need to knit 23 centimeters. And we calculated that this is 72. Now, we divide 72 rows by 12 rows. This is 12 rows, which is 1 pattern repeat. It turns out that I need to knit 6. Pattern repeats. Consequently, 23 centimeters equals 72 rows and 6 pattern repeats. Thus, we calculated that I need to knit 6 repeats of my pattern, meaning 6 such branches. Therefore, on circular needles, we cast on 143 stitches, or whatever number you ended up with. How to cast on stitches on the needles, and how to unwind the needed amount of yarn before casting on. I have already covered all of this in previous lessons, and I will also leave links under the video for those who find it difficult or who do not know. After we have cast on the necessary number of stitches on the needles, we begin with the first row to knit our pattern. I will also leave a link to the lesson on the pattern under the video, so look for it. And we will knit this pattern for all 143 stitches, that is, in turn rows. Well, let's get started with the knitting. So, I knitted 1 repeat in height, which is 12 rows. I roughly measured with my tape measure. Basically, I am getting the right size of about 60 centimeters. It's a bit unclear right now. It stretches however you want. Our fabric is very elastic in general. I have here 12 rows knitted, which is 1 repeat, so this is 1 pattern. This means the bottom of the item will have these waves. So, let's keep knitting upwards and we'll meet later. Well, I finished knitting, and I ended up with 6 repeats in height, or 6 of these branches. Please check. According to your measurements, you may have a completely different number. After this, we will distribute our stitches between the back and the front panels. That is, we will now knit the front panels separately and the back separately. I immediately placed the markers. Here's my front panel. And I placed a marker here and immediately transferred everything to different needles. Well, for now, I took this marker temporarily. I moved this front panel to the marker to knit. Therefore, I directly put it on the working needle. And I left the back on my circular needles. How many stitches are here? I think you will figure it out. So, we should have an equal number of stitches for both the back and both front panels together. Initially, I had 143 stitches. So, I took 70 stitches for the back, 37 stitches for one front panel, and 36 for the other. That is, I distributed them so that my front panel would have 2.5 patterns. The second front panel also has 2.5 patterns. And for the back, I have a total of 5 patterns, 4.5. That's it. We distributed the stitches and placed markers. Now we will knit the front panels separately. So, I knitted this part for 23 centimeters, 6 repeats. Now, for my front panel here, I need to decrease for the armhole. How are we going to do this? Let's start with this right shelf. So here we have the underarm. Therefore, in the next rows, as we knit upwards now, we will make some decreases for the armhole here. We have the yarn remaining on this side. So this is my front side. Therefore, I will now knit one front row according to the pattern up to this point and then turn the work. This means all our decreases will be on the wrong side. So I will knit one front row now, so the end of the yarn is right here. We will make decreases 4 times. This means we will make a decrease every other row. The first decrease will be 4 stitches, the second decrease 3, the third decrease 2 stitches, and the fourth decrease 1 stitch. So every other row, each wrong row will begin with a decrease. This is our first row. We will make 4 decreases here. How will I make the decrease? I will make the decrease using the method of passing. In the first row, we slip the first stitch onto the right needle. We knit the second stitch according to the pattern. For me, that is a purl stitch. Then we pass the slipped first stitch over the knitted purl stitch. Here is my first decrease. The second decrease is done the same way. This means we knit the next stitch purl, or according to the pattern. Then we pass this first stitch over the second knitted one. We have made 2 decreases. Next we knit the following stitch, and again make a pass. This means we pass the first stitch over the second. That is 3 decreases, and we need to make 4 in this row. So make 4 passes. We are done with 4 decreases. Next, we knit to the end of the row according to the pattern. As usual, we knit the purl row. I finished knitting and turned my work. Now, I will knit a knit row according to the pattern. Here's my end of the row. I do not knit the last edge stitch as a purl. As usual, I simply slip it onto the right needle, the working yarn is in front, and I turn the work. Now, here is our purl side. We need to decrease again. In the last row, we made 4 decreases. In this row we need to make 3 decreases. We slip the first 2 stitches without knitting, and yarn over the first onto the second. This is our first decrease. Next, we knit, as usual. This is the second decrease. That is, as in the last row. We knit according to the pattern and yarn over. We knit again. This gives us the third stitch. By catching this stitch, we yarn over the knitted one. We have decreased 3 stitches. Next, we knit the purl side according to the pattern. We knit the knit row according to the pattern. We also do not knit the last stitch but simply slip it and turn the work. In this row, we need to decrease 2 stitches. We slip the first 2 stitches onto the right needle without knitting. Yarn over the first stitch onto the second. Here is our first decrease. We knit the next stitch according to the pattern. In my case, it is a purl stitch, and again we yarn over the first stitch, catch it, and yarn over the second. That's it. we have made 2 decreases. Next, we knit according to the pattern again. We knit again a front row to the last stitch. The last stitch, again, is not knitted, but lifted onto the right needle with the yarn in front of the work, and we will turn the knitting. We have already made 3 decreases. This is our last row with decreases. That is, the first 2 stitches are lifted unknitted onto the right needle. After this, we throw the first stitch over the second. That's it. We made our last decrease. Now we finish our purl row according to the pattern. There, we have shaped the armhole. Now, in order to continue knitting with the main pattern, we need to know how far we need to knit before starting the neck decreases. So, we made a decrease for the armhole. After this, let's do a bit of counting. We'll make some calculations. The decrease for the armhole took 8 rows. Since we made 4 decreases accordingly, in every second row, we knitted 8 rows. Let's count how many centimeters we knitted. 1 centimeter corresponds to 3 whole 13/100ths of a row. Here, we calculated accordingly. X centimeters corresponds to 8 rows. According to the proportion, we calculate 8 multiplied by 1 centimeter and divided by 3 whole 13/100ths of a row. It comes out as 2 whole 56/100ths of a centimeter. Thus, 8 rows are equal to 2 whole 56/100ths of a centimeter, that is. We made a decrease, knitted 8 rows, or knitted 2 whole 5/10ths of a centimeter. After our decrease for the armhole, we need to knit a certain number of rows straight up before starting the neck decreases. We will now calculate how many rows or centimeters we need to knit before starting the neck decreases. So, decreases for the neck. I will jump ahead and say that it will take 14 rows for the neck decrease. We will decrease 7 times, hence 14 rows. Accordingly, let's calculate how many centimeters this will take. 1 centimeter, we have calculated that as 3 whole 13/100ths of a row. X centimeters, this corresponds to 14 rows. From this, we multiply 1 centimeter by 14 rows and divide by 3 whole 13/100ths of a row. This results in 4 whole 47/100ths of a centimeter. Thus, our decrease for the neckline will take 14 rows or 4 whole 47/100ths of a centimeter. According to our measurements, if our total length along the back is 36 centimeters and the length from the underarm down is 23, then our yoke height will be 13 centimeters now. We will subtract our decrease for the armhole from this entire height of 13 centimeters, that is, how much we took in centimeters for the decrease is 2 whole 56/100ths of a centimeter. Then, we subtract the decrease for the neckline. How many centimeters will our decrease take? 4 whole 47/100ths of a centimeter. Also, as I mentioned, after decreasing the neckline, we will knit 2 centimeters more here and work through the shoulder, thus. We subtract these 2 centimeters from our height. Ultimately, we get 3 whole 97 hundredths of a centimeter. That is, we subtracted from our yoke height our decrease for the armhole, the decrease for the neckline, and 2 centimeters, which we will knit here until the end, until we bind off. Accordingly, we obtained this distance, that is, we have now made the armhole decrease, and will knit 3 whole 97 centimeters. Well, let's round this to 4 centimeters. And here, what else are we going to do? 1 centimeter, again, it equals 3 whole 13 rows. This is all about the height. So we calculated 3 whole 97 centimeters, we have X rows. Again, my favorite proportions, 3 whole 97 centimeters multiplied by 3 whole 13 rows and all divided by 1 centimeter. In the end, we get 12 whole 43 rows. Here, we arrived at our number of rows. We obtained the distance that we need to knit in centimeters. And with these calculations, we got the number of rows corresponding to these centimeters. Thus, we are currently knitting 3 whole 97 centimeters or 4 centimeters in height. These 4 centimeters are equal to 12 rows. So we got the number of rows that we now need to knit. I think I explained it clearly. If something is still unclear, ask. I will try to explain again. So that's it. Let's get started, girls, let's knit. According to my measurements, you probably have your own. Yes. I knit 12 rows. My main pattern is in the straight. That is, right here we have decreased for the armhole. Next, I will knit 12 rows in height. Therefore, after decreasing for my armhole here, I will knit a whole pattern, repeat straight. That is, I will knit 1 branch. Then we will meet again and start decreasing for the neckline. That is, from this side, we will decrease the stitches. Let's stop here for now. You can see the continuation in the next part, and I will say goodbye to you for now. Wishing you easy stitches and see you soon.